Imagine waking up on an ordinary morning, surrounded by everything you know and believe in. The smell of breakfast, the distant sound of television, the routine that gives security and meaning to your life. Now imagine that, in a matter of minutes, all this disappears, and you come face to face with something that no teaching, no prayer, no belief could ever prepare you to understand. My name is Yasmin Abdul, and I was 12 years old when an unexpected tragedy changed my life forever. For 4 minutes and 37 seconds, I was dead, not only unconscious but truly lifeless. What happened in this short period was not just an experience, it was a revelation. A terrifying and transformative glimpse of what really awaits us on the other side. This experience not only challenged everything I believed about God, religion, and the eternal destiny of the soul, it destroyed these beliefs and rebuilt something entirely new. What I saw and heard changed my life forever. And maybe when I heard my story, I changed yours too. Before that day, I believed I knew everything about God, about the purpose of life, and what awaited us after death. I grew up in a devotedly Muslim family, where faith was the foundation of everything. I prayed 5 times a day with my parents, fasted during Ramadan, and did everything to follow the teachings I learned since I was little. My family has always been very close, and my parents, immigrants from Pakistan, made a point of keeping our traditions alive, even living in the United States. For me, that was normal. I never questioned, never doubted, just followed what I was taught. That winter, our life seemed to be going well. My older brother, Amira, had just received a full scholarship to Michigan State University. My younger brother, Sine, was finally improving in school after some difficulties, and my father had received a promotion at work. Everything seemed to be in harmony, as my parents always said it should be for those who lived according to God's laws. That specific morning, everything seemed normal. The snow was falling outside, covering the streets of Lansing, Michigan, with a thick white layer. I woke up early, as always, got ready for school, and went down to the kitchen, where my mother was preparing breakfast. My father had already left for work, and my younger brother was in the shower, getting ready to go out. While I was putting my stuff in the backpack, I noticed a slight dizziness. I thought it was just tiredness. After all, it was winter, and the short and dark days always made me a little slower. While I was helping my mother put the dishes in the washing machine, the dizziness got worse. The room began to spin, my vision became blurred, and suddenly everything collapsed. I could barely breathe. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't form the words to ask for help. I remember my mother's frightened look as I fell on the kitchen floor. In the midst of weakness and despair, I managed to drag myself to the counter and reach my phone. With trembling hands, I dialed the emergency number and muttered our address before the device fell out of my hand. From then on, everything got confused. I only learned later that my call was what saved my family. The firefighters arrived in a few minutes and found dangerous levels of carbon monoxide in the house. Our old boiler had a crack, and the gas was leaking silently, without smell or color, while filling our house. My brother fainted in the shower. My mother fell unconscious in the kitchen, and I was found almost without a pulse. On the way to the hospital, my heart stopped for 4 minutes and 37 seconds. I was clinically dead. What happened during those minutes is something that still moves me deeply. It was an experience that changed not only my life, but everything I believed in about God, about the purpose of life, and about eternity. When my heart stopped, there was no light tunnel that so many people describe. Instead, it was as if I had been immersed in icy waters. It was such an intense shock that it seemed to penetrate every part of my being. Then, suddenly, I was out of my body, floating on the scene inside the ambulance. I could see the paramedics working frantically to save me. One of them made compressions on my chest, while another prepared the defibrillator. My appearance was scary, pale, almost translucent, still wearing my striped pajamas and the bracelet that my best friend had given me as a birthday present. What caught my attention the most, however, were the small details. I could notice things I would never have noticed before. There was a coffee stain on the sleeve of the uniform of one of the paramedics, and a crack in the ceiling of the ambulance that formed a question mark. I didn't feel fear, just a strange curiosity and a feeling that something bigger was happening. Suddenly, everything went dark. But it wasn't the kind of darkness you see when you close your eyes. It was a living darkness, almost palpable, as if it had a presence of its own. I could feel that I was being pulled inside her, deeper and deeper, by an invisible force. There was no sound, no light, just this overwhelming feeling of movement and mystery. Then, in the midst of this darkness, a light appeared. It wasn't an ordinary light. It was something indescribable, brighter than anything I had ever seen, but without hurting my eyes. The light seemed to carry a comforting warmth, a love so intense that it made me feel completely exposed, but in a good way, as if all my essence was being seen and accepted. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. A presence approached me, a figure that exuded authority and compassion. I knew instinctively that it was an angel. It was nothing like the images I had seen in the books or heard in the stories. It had no wings or a frightening appearance. It was majestic, with eyes that seemed to contain the wisdom of ages and a voice that sounded like a powerful river. Without saying a word, the angel began to show me things. It was as if I was watching a movie, but the images were more real than anything I had ever experienced. First, I saw my own life. I saw the moments when I faithfully followed the teachings of my religion, the times I prayed fervently, and even the moments when I invited friends to the mosque, believing I was doing something good. But then the angel began to reveal the truth behind all this. I saw how, despite all my devotion, I was following a path that took me away from the true God. The angel showed me how the religion I had blindly followed was not the truth I believed to be. I saw how Satan had used the sincerity of people, including mine, to create a structure of rules and traditions that kept people imprisoned, away from true salvation. My heart broke when I saw friends and family that I loved deeply, sincere in their faith, but trapped in an illusion. The angel didn't show these things to condemn or shame me, but to help me understand. It was as if a blindfold had been removed from my eyes, allowing me to see clearly for the first time. So, I was taken to an indescribable place, something I can only call the throne of God. The presence there was so intense that everything I thought I knew about God seemed insignificant. This was not the distant and severe God I had learned to fear, but a Father full of love, who knew me completely and yet loved me perfectly. While I was in front of this throne, I saw something that forever changed my understanding of life and death. I saw souls entering heaven, not because of their good deeds or their own merits, but because they had put their faith in Jesus Christ. I understood that salvation was not something that could be conquered, but a gift of grace, received through faith, and demonstrated through our actions inspired by this faith. The vision that presented itself before me was of an overwhelming clarity, as if every detail was illuminated by a light that made any doubt impossible. It was as if all the questions I had carried throughout my short life were answered at once, with a certainty that left no room for hesitation. The power of this experience was absolute, penetrating every part of my being and destroying all the uncertainties that, until then, seemed so solid. At that moment, I knew, with an unwavering conviction, that what I was witnessing was the truth. A truth so deep and transformative that the person I had been before no longer existed. My life from that moment on would never be the same.